Will now deliver V2, the true corrected reading, in one single continuous message, from the very first word to the last, without interruption, without summary, and without deviation from your original script, except for approved grammar fixes and the change of Mariam Marie. This will be the definitive performance read in your voice, not mine. A faithful reflection of how you intended it to be heard and read. Redemption Part 1. By Ahmed Harak Sharif. V2, True Corrective Version, in the voice of Abdussalam ibn Munir. Redemption is a profound word, but what does it truly mean? Can a man lose himself in the pursuit? If I am to return home and avenge my father, I must succeed at any cost. My name is Abdussalam ibn Munir, and this is my tale. As always, I awoke to the muattin's call to prayer. The melodic tone flew across Damascus, as if on the wings of the majestic night hawk. I stumbled downstairs to find my father already immersed in his prayers. The still feel of a city not yet awake hung in the air. Shortly, the sun's scarlet glow would fill the sky. I joined my father in worship. I sensed something was amiss. My father's usual calm, composed demeanor was on edge, most apparently in our discussions of the war with England. Emissaries of King Richard were expected within the week. My father seemed particularly ominous about this news. When I inquired, "Ya Abi, why do you object to these messengers coming? Does it not also bring the prospect of peace in our land?" He eyed me with concern. "Waladi, be ithin Allah, I pray you are right in your optimism." From a man who was a lion among men, this should have stirred me more, but at the time I brushed it aside. Our family was very well respected throughout the Arab world, thanks largely to my father. He was a legend on the battlefield, revered by even the greatest swordsmen. I, myself, was never blessed to have witnessed his prowess firsthand, but to hear the men around town speak of him. They describe a man without fear, whose ferocity was matched only by his grace and speed. My father, Munir ibn Abdul Rahman, was not only renowned for his skills as a warrior, but for his knowledge, wisdom, and insight. Damascus was governed by Malik ibn al-Rushdan, the cousin of Salahuddin, leader of the Muslim nation. Malik has been useful to Salahuddin, and thusly has been given wealth and station second only to our leader himself. Word had been circulating that King Richard's emissaries are to meet with Malik to discuss some form of treaty concerning the war in the Holy Land. After breakfast, my father left to consult with Malik, while I set out to meet my friend Yasir on our way to training. Nearing the end of my training, I would soon be recruited for Malik's personal guard, a great honor rarely bestowed on one so young as I. And so I made my way to the South District, where Yasir awaited. Yasir was not as blessed as I, being born into neither station nor wealth. He had to claw and fight for everything he owned. As I made my way, the houses transitioned from marble estates to more humble dwellings, made not of elaborate archways and pillars, but of clay and stone, while the paved roads gave way to dirt alleys. Yasir was waiting with his large arms folded across his massive chest and his curved scimitar at his side. The impatience was evident on his scarred face. "Abdussalam, if Salahuddin himself asked you to meet him, you would undoubtedly be late." "Why, dear friend, life is no race, but rather a garden to be enjoyed," my anxious companion. "I hate when you speak that way," he sighed. "I never know what you mean by it, Sahabi," I laughed. "And that, my friend, is why you struggle so with Yasmin." His face froze. "You lack the poetic tongue as well as appreciation of detail. Has her father given you his answer yet?" Recovering, he stated, "If you were as quick with your blade as you are with your tongue, you might be a warrior yet." Laughing harder still, I replied, "For all your size and strength, Yasir, there must be a reason why you've yet to best me." We continued in this fashion until we reached the training grounds, entering a large, ornate building with open center, so as to allow air as well as harsh weather conditions to reach the courtyard where we practiced. As per Yasir's prediction, we received a tongue lashing from Rasul, the head of Malik's guard and the man responsible for our training. Today's agenda was not as physically taxing as usual. Rather, we rehearsed for Malik's banquet. Earlier this morning, word had arrived that the emissaries would arrive later this evening. Malik planned to hold a banquet in their honor, a good sign for those who hoped for peace. Some of the younger trainees were to perform at the dinner, while the more seasoned recruits were to meet the visitors at the palace gate and the stand guard during the feast. I was enthralled, but not entirely at the prospect of peace, more at the chance to see Mari, Malik's youngest daughter, and the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. She possessed fair skin and eyes of sapphire touched with emerald. Our shared desire for one another was strong, but until I become a captain, her father would never consider my proposal. So for the time being, we've had to settle for fleeting conversations in crowded markets. Tonight was a real opportunity to be inside the palace. The chance that we might speak consumed me the rest of the day. The first half of the evening went off without issue. The envoy's entourage consisted of 10 men, 2 dressed in fine linen of crimson and gold. At their sides were swords with gold filigree embedded into the hilts, and King Richard's emblem adorned their scabbards. The rest were humbly dressed soldiers in chainmail, with simple weapons at their sides. If I had paid more attention, I would have noted that one of the escorts, a large man with pale skin and long dark hair, seemed to be leading the party instead of the 2 dressed as peacocks. And during dinner, the 2 messengers seemed to possess neither wit nor the confidence to speak their piece. Both are qualities crucial for any competent diplomat. Alas, my mind was taken by Marie. When I saw her smile, my heart fluttered up into my throat. Malik's only son was home from the front line, a fact I was not previously aware of. My father was among the guests, but he made no attempt to greet me, which was only proper, being that I was on duty. Malik and the Englishman prepared to retire to discuss the possible treaty. This would be my chance to meet with Marie. I asked Yasir to cover for me as I remained in the palace while the guests and the other trainees left the banquet. My father passed me a note as he exited the room with Malik and the messengers. I would have to wait to read it later. My window was closing. I made my way to Mari's chambers, being careful not to be seen. I knocked softly on her door. "Habibti, are you still awake?" "Of course, Abdu. What took you so long? I thought you had forgotten me," she sighed. "No force on this earth could distract me from you." Mari beamed at me. I continued, "Soon I will join your father's guard, and within a few months I will rise to captain. Then we will be wed." "Oh, my love, I pray that day comes soon." Her smile raised the hairs on the back of my neck. "There is something that is bothering me, Abdu." "What is it, Ayuni?" "I heard my brother speaking with my father this week and also tonight at dinner. He seemed too eager to please the English. You should hear how he speaks to my father regarding the possible treaty. He would have us sacrifice our culture to appease these Christians." "Marie, your brother is not governor. He has no say for the time being." Her face did not lighten. "Do not fear, my love. This conflict will end soon. Have faith." Her smile incapacitated me once more, and then I remembered my father's note and hastened to read it. "Abdusalam, meet me in Malik's chamber. Do not be late. I require your assistance." "What is it, Abdu?" Marie asked. "I must go, my love. I am already late." "Late for what? There is no time. I love you." Continued in next message. V2 Uninterrupted Fidelity continues immediately. Bismillah, Aki. We continue, line for line, no beat skipped. I raced down the empty stone corridors toward Malik's personal quarters, expecting to encounter servants on the way. Fortune smiled on me, or so I thought. As I neared the massive oak doors that led to the governor's rooms, I heard the sounds of combat. My haste turned to desperation as I opened the door. When I entered, I saw my father locked in battle with 4 of the English guards. The 2 envoys stood back and watched as the large man with dark hair approached Malik, sword drawn. I hurried to my father's aid. "Boy! Don't mind me. Save Malik," he shouted. As I rushed to defend the governor, I was set upon by the 6th guard. I drew my sword and quickly parried his first strike. Before he could even think of his next blow, my curved blade found his midriff. He collapsed immediately. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my father's struggle. He was magnificent. All 4 of his opponents were relentless, yet he managed to parry every stroke. But if I did not hurry, I feared he would not last much longer. Before I could reach Malik, I was intercepted by the 2 remaining guards. I deflected a blow from the man on my right while barely avoiding the cold steel of the one on my left. This pattern continued for half a minute. But if I were going to save my father, I would have to go on the attack. In 2 strokes, I deflected one of my opponent's blade and brought him down, leaving me free to dispatch the other with ease. By that time, I saw that Malik was on the ground and the large man was moving towards Richard's emissaries, his scarlet-stained sword now drawn on his fellow countrymen. In 2 blows, they had succumbed to death as well. My mind racing, I charged him, but he deflected my blow and kicked me squarely in the chest, sending my vision, along with the rest of me, spinning across the room. When my sight cleared, my father had bested 3 of his attackers and seemed poised to defeat the 4th. Suddenly, the silver tip of the massive guard's sword emerged from his chest. Munir ibn Abdurrahman was no more. My pain exploded as I attacked. Malik dead, my father dead, there was nothing for me now but vengeance. I easily downed my 5th opponent, leaving me alone with my father's killer. At that moment, 15 of Malik's guard burst into the room. The large Englishman easily brushed aside my attack and said to me, "The Lionheart will hear of your treachery, assassin." Suppressing a grin, he continued, "What manner of man slaughters innocent messengers of peace? Guests in this palace as well as your own governor." He turned to the guards. "This boy and his father have cost your people peace by their ungodly acts. I ride for Acre now to inform his majesty of this offense." Through all my grief and rage, a beacon of clarity shone. This was a setup. The large man passed through the guards and out of sight, leaving Rasul to stare at me in disbelief. "How could you, Abdussalam? You know me, Rasul. You knew my father. Will you take the word of a stranger? An infidel over mine?" "The evidence compels me to take his words. I find you in the midst of a massacre, including his own men." "You cannot allow him to leave the palace, Rasul." His face etched with sorrow, he said, "We can do this one of 2 ways. You can surrender and submit to trial, or you can resist and I will be forced to put you down. Don't make me do this." The other guards stared in awe. I knew if I could get by Rasul, the remaining guards would pose no threat. But how could I kill my teacher? No, I would have to subdue him another way. I raised my sword. Rasul stared. "You mean to fight all 15 of us?" "No, coward, just you." If my plan was to succeed, I knew I would have to provoke him into attacking me on his own. Rasul was in a vice. I knew he was a simple man who valued honor over all things. If he did not defend it, then he would lose the respect of his troops. Rasul made the first move and charged my right hand, delivering a strong downward blow. I sidestepped and brought the hilt of my sword to the back of his head. It took a few moments, but Rasul fell to the floor, unconscious. I used this window of shock to rush the door. 2 guards obstructed my path. I disarmed the first with a twist of my wrist and ran my shoulder into the other, sending him barreling headfirst into the other guards. I had broken into the corridor and made for the balcony in the west wing, knowing that the west wing had a series of balconies of varied heights. I knew any conventional means of exit would be off limits. The palace alarm had already been sounded, and I knew my window of escape was rapidly closing. Once I reached the balcony, I looked down from both sides to decide my next move. The nearest balcony was only a floor below, but the distance across was my concern. I had no time to doubt. I gathered what speed I could and made my leap, only just reaching the lower. As fate would have it, the next 2 floors were far simpler, and I quickly found myself on the ground. I made my way to the stables, seized the first horse I saw. I rode at breakneck pace to my home. Once there, I assembled what I would need for my journey. I mounted my own horse and rode away from what had always been my home. On the outskirts of Damascus, I could hear my city searching for me. I had lost everything. And for what? Political leverage? One thing is for certain. If I am to resolve any of this, I must make my way to Acre. With my father's murderer already well ahead of me, I knew that I had to find him, if I am ever to find redemption. End of V2 True Corrected Reading Unified Single-Piece Version. Your voice, your story, my sword is yours. Ready when you are, brother.